a bit.
Start again.
Don and I go back a bit. He and I were in the 135th at the same time. Flew together a bunch. We had a hydraulics failure together, didn't we? I think we had a hydraulics failure.
I did have a hydraulics failure.
Yeah, that was us.
You were on the ship with me that day. I'll never forget that.
Where did we do the run and landing? At Zion? Or were we out?
It was at Dongtan.
Was it at Dongtan?
It was the PSP runway.
Oh, right. We went over on the whatever the one that the Seawolves had over there. We landed there. Right. Yeah.
And that was the first time in my life that I finally figured out what people talked about when they said your knees turn to rubber. Because my knees turned to rubber coming in. But oh my God, what a day that was. We came down on that runway and I said, oh no, PSP.
Go ahead.
I remember that after we landed, I got out and I kissed the ground. I said, thank you, Lord, for bringing us back.
Of course, first thing I had to do was go figure out what caused the hydraulics failure while Don was kissing the ground. My job to figure out what the fuck went wrong. I don't remember what went wrong on that one. But then Don also, I don't remember we talked about this at the reunion, you don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was you. In the EMU Inc, I got shot down and you were trail. And so we took an aircraft that had been shot down earlier in the day, and I rigged that one out with some other people, rigged it out, and then we did some more lifts later, a little further down the canal line. You were trailman, and we got shot down. Who was I with? I was with Burks.
Larry Burks.
I was with Larry Burks.
From Arkansas.
Yeah, Larry Burks and me, and Holly was my gunner. I don't remember. Oh, Crowley. John Crowley was the Peter pilot.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we got shot down, and you made a quick go around, came back, but we were only about, because it stitched us up pretty good. My tail number on that aircraft was 682. No. Yeah, 682. And Don made a quick go around, came in and got us, but we were only about 50 yards from the people who shot us down. And as you were coming in, they were plinking at you. And he picked us all up, and so I owe Don one, because he picked my ass up. It was in what we called it was the EMU Forest. It was one of the way down south, the tip of the country where it's actually a peninsula.
Forecourt.
Yeah, and it was one of the more, I found out after the war, reading some books, the EMU Forest area and the Oshaw Valley were the only two places that were never brought within any kind of government control. And when you were working, the cameraman was working up north in the Oshaw Valley. They were doing an offensive there with the 101st Airborne, the last major offensive there by the 101st. That very time, we were doing one in the EMU, and it's written about, General Abrams spoke about it, doing both offensives at the same time. There's a lot more planning to it than any of us have heard of. All we did was go out in the morning, get in the helicopters and go. But it was all this well-timed, planned bullshit. Anyway.
A lot of stuff we never saw being on the ground.
That's right.
So Don, what's it like to be visiting old friends?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I think it's fantastic. And I will always remember my crew chief, Jeff, when we were set down in between combat assaults where we took the troops and deposited them and we were waiting to get picked up. Jeff was always looking at the helicopter, checking out the chip detector, checking out everything on that helicopter to make sure it was flyable again. And I was very proud to have him as my crew chief when I flew.
Did he often remind you that it was his aircraft?
No,
when it broke, he was more than willing to make it my aircraft. When it was flying good, it was his aircraft.
No, he was the best. He did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Don. Peter and I both worked very hard. I did. How many hours did you end up with flying?
I ended up with 1,000. To mention is one of the days when I was first there, flying with our Australian compatriots. One fella named Andy Perry. He took us down this river through it was in Three Corps somewhere. I don't know if you were.
Yeah, I was with you. I know what you're going to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, we got we're flying down this tunnel of trees where the coconut palms were completely overhead, so we could not fly up through the trees. We had to go through this tunnel right along the river. And he was letting me fly, and all of a sudden Andy said, "I got it." And I said, "Andy, you got it." And he took that helicopter, and it was like he put the brakes on and stood it on its tail, and then did a 180 and flew back out of there. And I said, "Andy, why'd you do that?" He said, "Didn't you see the wires in front of us?" There was a booby trap that he saw the wires, and the VC would put hand grenades on the end of the wires, and he saw it. And because he was jet qualified before he learned how to fly a helicopter, he knew how far he could take that bird. And I mean, he did something that I didn't know you could do with a Huey.
The only time I ever got in a retreating blade stall, which means you're going past VNE, was with Andy Perry. And he'd push it to the edge of VNE. And we were pushing it because I flew with Andy as his crew chief for about 6 months before I started flying with others. I was his assigned crew chief the last 6 months he was in Vietnam, but Andy liked to hang out with his Australian buddies. We took off one day from the package while it was waiting and went over to see some of his friends, and we were late getting back. He was getting hounded on the radio, and so he didn't tip it over for any combat emergency. He did it because he was late getting back to the formation. And did you ever get in a retreating blade stall? It's not something.
I don't think so.
It starts to dip. It's when the retreating blade you're going so fast you're losing lift on that side, and so it's dipping as it doesn't have lift on that side. You start to lose control in that direction, and yeah, that's the only time I ever had that. All for Andy to get back on time, or late as it were. But that was Andy. He and I are still close. Andy will be out. Andy's planning to come out this summer if he can. He's going to be here in June or July, possibly. He and I are still working on it.
Oh, okay. Good. Tell him to bring some Victoria bitters with him. You think we can make it? And it was all we had, but we greased it right on there.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. I was on several of them.
I remember getting down.
Oh.